necessary to intervene. So I want to make that clear. The two main issues of a sovereign state is you take care of the international affairs and nobody could legally intervene in your affairs. That doesn't apply to us. Secondly, when we deal with independence, I'd like to say this. If we look at the Netherlands, we saw that they fought three wars, not one, not two, three wars. They fought the Spaniards, they fought the French, and they fought the Germans. Three times they fought to be an independent people to control their own destiny. The French, the same thing. They fought two wars also to control their destiny. All peoples in this world, this room that we're sitting in right here now, this island was once populated by a different group of people. The Caribbean Indians, for lack of a better name, they don't exist today. They were taken out. When people don't take care of their own destiny, when people refuse or is not allowed to control their own destiny, those people will cease to exist. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, a man becomes a slave by force, but he remains a slave by choice. By choice. And if we choose not to take our own destiny into our hands, which is against the law of nature, every people has to take it. That's what the United Nations themselves said. This is the third decade of the eradication of colonialism. They want to get rid of colonialism because every human being, every people has the right to control their own destiny. And if we were not a people, if we were not considered even by the colonial bosses in The Hague as a people, they would have never agreed for us to have referendums in order to determine which way we want to represent.
Mr. Lake, I just want to interrupt because I think you made a clear statement, also in reaction in response to Mr. Groeneveld about The Hague and about the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Mr. Groeneveld, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, allow me. I have here with me the Montevideo Convention that stipulates the criteria for being a country, of being a state, of being independent. And Article 1 says basically you need a permanent population, which we do have. You need a defined territory, which we have. And define, the word define, it doesn't always have to be totally defined, because there are a lot of countries that have border disputes, so they don't have a defined territory. You need to have a government that governs the people. And then the fourth point was is the capacity to enter into relations with other countries. So that's to enter into treaties. If we look at 1, 2, 3, 4, we qualify. Also there is, it's not mentioned here, but usually it's accepted that there should be no other government agency above your government that can influence your decisions. But that is an issue that has been thrown out of the window because France, Holland, Germany, all of them don't qualify. They have the European Common Market over them that can influence their decision, but still we refer to them as sovereign independent states. And St. Martin, you might question, do we have the capacity to enter into treaties? Yes, we do. The kingdom is usually the sovereign entity that does that, but in the statute, and I can refer you to Article 26 of the statute that states that each of the countries within the kingdom can take the initiative to enter into treaties with other countries, and that treaty would only be applicable between, let's say, country St. Martin and another country. So basically, we are almost independent. And if you look at, one more point, if you look at Article 3 of the statute, where you have the division between the kingdom competencies and those of the country, you'll see basically the most things are there we don't need. We don't need them to be a country. And then just let me mention what Mrs. Bryson said. I'm also here as Renal Armando, not as the deputy governor, not representing the king or the governor or the governor's cabinet. Thank you.
For a short reaction, Mr. Lake.
Have you ever heard of almost pregnant?
Mrs. Jeffrey, Mr. Greenberg talked especially from the country St. Martin perspective. Can you respond from the Collectivité Saint-Martin?
Yes. I don't agree that the collectivité has a permanent population. A permanent population would be a population that is the same from, let us say, since the abolition of slavery. We have had an interruption of that development, of that continuity, which is making it so difficult today, here, and Aldine said it, people who don't know what happened 10 years ago, but they have the possibility, and we give them in St. Martin the possibility to express themselves. We are in a democracy, and they come out with these statements, okay? So I don't agree with permanent population. And I said also about the government. St. Martin French side is not a government, it's a division of the French administration. And one of the lowest division, you have the commune, which is the lowest, and it's the cousin of the commune. We get a collectivité. And the manner in which we got there, that collectivité is functioning really like a colony. Because, and it's a double colony, because since we did not prepare, and I think by now, after my book, The Status Scandal, when I talk about this impreparation of the population, of the people, they hide certain facts from the people. We were not prepared. Well, today we are seeing that we are not prepared in Guadeloupe, that were, you know, standoff when we were a commune of Guadeloupe. She allowed us to do many things. Right now she's stepping in because we're supposed to have the competence of the Conseil Général, which is the social competencies, and we are not ready. We have trained nobody for that. So now Guadeloupe is colonizing us. So we have double colonization. We have the colonization of Guadeloupe and then the colonization of France. Economically, the companies in Guadeloupe come in and getting all the jobs, the big jobs, the state jobs here in St. Martin, and you have the people who listen sometimes to the radio. The BTP is the construction companies, but they did that to us 30 years ago in 1986 when they came, and when they eliminated all the local companies and the French companies came, but 30 years after they are the locals. So it is much more complex than it is, and I don't think that the Collectivité of St. Martin falls under that government. And as for inter-treaties, we're supposed to do conventions with the state. We signed an intent of convention with the Dutch side not long ago, but you had 2 against 1. You had the Prime Minister, and on the other side you had the President of the collectivité, but she can't do anything without the prefect. So, I mean, the situation is just not what it is said in the papers and even the organic laws and so. because there is something that we have to do. There is no country like St. Martin. There is no island that have gone through the history of St. Martin. And for me, we are not doing our work. France has prepared St. Martin for the 30 last years to make us a colony. And if we want to go into independence, I think we got to take 30 years also to prepare ourselves into that stage. Because as Alvin said, I think you said it, it is not just political. It's the whole, and we were there. Before we were autonomous, we pick up ourselves, we went, now everybody's waiting on a welfare. They put us in the welfare, assistana, and you know more than any other European country. France is a country in which the principle of assimilation is the only relationship she has with people. So you got to assimilate, you got to become like, so you got to forget about yourself. And this is what is happening to us now. So we don't fall, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm speaking in my personal name also. As far as I'm concerned, that collectivity is a colony.
Thank you. Thank you very a double colony, and I'd like to quote from the book of Mr. Lake, which says, the further continuation of colonialism in all its forms and manifestation is a crime. And if I listen to the words of Mr. Groeneveld and hearing him saying that country St. Martin is almost a country, independent state, Mr. De Wever, do you think that collectivity should join country St. Martin? Do you think the collectivity, the French side, should join country St. Martin to become independent in France?
Well, actually, I think that, of course, they should, because otherwise you'd have similar problems that we're having now, whether you call it French or Dutch or North or South. The human instinct of division will always, and want to be different, will always play a role, and that's why you have the issue of national pride, identity. Those are important factors so that when we do form that front to be able to move towards the independence, that we don't have division within us. And I think that's a factor that is not an easy factor to overcome just by saying we all should be and want to become independent. I think we have to look at things within the context. We are talking about the extremes doesn't help the cause. The cause is we're dealing with people that when we talk about going towards independence, it's for us an unknown state, uncharted waters. People just don't go and like change from the very onset. They must be sometimes convinced, proven, shown, and I think the way in which that is most successfully done is if we start from looking at where we are and progressively moving towards it. That eliminates the barriers, the fears, and addresses and convinces them. Again, it's about the trust that builds the confidence towards that objective. Over time, it's going to happen certainly. There are a number of factors that is going to offset that, whether it is the economic environment, whether it is the political environment, whether it is the social environment, because, for example, people are going to compare what they have versus what they might get. And those are fundamental issues that has to be addressed. Just because we want it doesn't mean it's going to be that way. And we should look at this natural progression from the state of a colony towards what we used to have, at least on the southern side, the north side, with the Netherlands, towards a more autonomous country, not necessarily in the traditional word of country, but the fact that we have more autonomy and authority than what we had before, and these are natural progressive states that eventually will lead us towards that end goal of independence. And we must look at it and nurture it and build it, shape it, so that when we get there, it is with the best results.
Yeah, Mr. Lake?
You know, one of St. Martin's patrons, Felix Swazi, had a saying, the game doesn't stop at the frontier. Whatever happens on one side of St. Martin will eventually happen on the next side of St. Martin. And it also means that at this time in our history, we don't have time. Time is running out against us. Zero growth. We're not even making children. So when you don't have time, you don't have that luxury. As far as I am concerned, the southern side of St. Martin has the best opportunity to become independent peacefully. Peacefully. And that is because of even the statements made by the colonial bosses in the Hague. They have repeatedly said, and we have to challenge them, if you want independence, give us a phone call. That hasn't happened in the North. If we become independent, if we give them that phone call, and we become independent in the South, and through our example of how we carry ourselves as an independent nation, and we also stipulate at the same time that all St. Martiners, whether you're from the South or the North, have automatic rights to citizenship of the Republic of St. Martin in the South. It will mean that eventually, the way we carry ourselves, our entire island will become independent. It's like a hurricane. It will be impossible to stop it. But we must do it now. Time is running out. We could say what we want, we could play the time game, but time is against us. I will use, for those of you who are Christians, a Christian example. When Christ went looking for his disciples, he said, follow me now. He didn't say go home, talk to your wife, clear it with your children, and then come back. He said, follow me now, today. Let's do it now. All of his actions have been now. Tomorrow is guaranteed to no one. Neither a nation. Neither a nation. We see what happened to the Indians. And if we cease to exist, we want to make 1 minute on CNN. Not even 1 minute the world will stop and say, hey, those people cease to exist. No. So our destiny is in our hands. Nobody else cares about us the way we care. And nobody loves us the way we love ourselves. So we don't have the time to play. That's my feeling about this whole thing with independence. Either we take our destiny and we go out there and do what we have to do. And as far as independence is concerned, you learn independence as you go along. You cannot learn independence when you're not independent. You have to learn it as you go along. That is a fact.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weaver talked about a smooth transition. Let's talk about a smooth transition. And Mr. Lake is saying, well, we do it now, we need to do it now. Mrs. Pamphlet, what's your point of view on that?
What Mr. Lake says sounds nice, and I would really, really like to believe it, but I'm a realist. We are talking about not just about the people getting independence. We're talking about the political structure. Do we feel comfortable with what is taking place at this time on our island? Do we trust our political leaders to follow them into independence? That is one. Secondly, we're talking about preparing ourselves. You stated that if we had done our work 26 years ago, they said we could be independent and we should have worked on it. We would have been independent by about 15 years now. We're still not working. That is our problem. We are not energizing the people. We are not talking independence. We even don't have St. Martin songs. We don't have anything to say, but okay, we are glorifying our island. When you look at Curacao, and I'm going to draw them, they have contests where they sing songs glorifying their island. They are working on energizing God. At a certain time, everybody has it. We start very good on St. Martin, and halfway we stop. In the 80s, we had children contests with songs of St. Martin. It was beautiful. We don't hear them anymore. It's not there anymore. Independence has to live among the people. It has to be there. We cannot stay from on top. You have said it. It got to be from the bottom. So if it's not, what is keeping us from getting from the bottom? Why aren't we not doing what we have to do to energize our people so that we can truly strive for independence?
Yeah, I see two hands raising. Just 10-20 seconds, because I also want to have questions from the audience. Mr. Groeneveld and then Mr. Lake.
Yes. Sovereignty rests with the people. And when the people feel that they are ready for independence, then we are going to become independent. And it wouldn't make much sense, and I would love to see the French side together with the Dutch side taking that step. But I understand from my colleague here that the situation is not the same. And maybe Mr. Lake should adjust the title of the book and say the collectivity got a 6 for 9, and not a country. Thank you.
Mr. Lake.
I just want to say this. The people of St. Martin in 1994 voted in the first referendum. Independence got close. Independence got more votes in St. Martin than the rest of the Netherlands Antilles combined. In the year 2000, the people again voted. Independence numbers grew by more than 300%. Over 1,000 people voted. So we're seeing the lines. Today, we could remember many of the politicians before in 2000 saying, I am for independence, but I can't say it because I'll lose votes. Today, if you ask the politicians in parliament, they will tell you publicly, they're stating now that they voted for independence. The reason is very simple. The population out there, they have a feel, a pulse, and they know the majority of the people today on this island will vote for independence if it comes down to a vote between independence and assimilation or integration into the Netherlands. With the example that the population have seen in Sabon Station, there's no way they could stop independence except by ensuring there's no referendum.
Okay, thank you. I would like to see some questions. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 already. We'll just start with him. Can you please call your name and ask the question, maybe to who you want to ask the question?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Sibanis. First of all, Mr. Lake, thank you for writing that book. Honestly, it did enlighten me on a lot of stuff that I did not know about the island, and I've been living here for more than 20 years already. I would like to address, or I would like to say something in regards to independence itself. What I believe this island is lacking in regards to independence is the understanding of independence itself, because how we are right now and how we were then, we've moved along and we haven't moved that far from the mental understanding of, okay, we want independence. But our leaders, our government officials, they're not putting anything in place to educate us further into getting this independence. There's, between the collectivity and the Dutch government, there is not any kind of community, any kind of communal action being taken. So what I think really needs to happen is St. Martin needs to understand the definition of independence for themselves and the definition for the people. We have French, we have Dutch, but the people, they're not working as St. Martin. They're working as French, they're working as Dutch. And if that is worked on, I do not think we need to get permission from the Dutch or permission from the French to work internally. But we ourselves are not being led in that internally. So I feel if we work on that, regardless of what the definition is of sovereignty or independence, then the mentality will grow, and regardless of how long it takes, if you want it today, you want it, it will happen for itself. But we are not being led in that manner. And that is my input on that.
Who do you want to respond to that? Maybe one of the people from the panel would like to respond to that. You have the mic over there.
Yes, I think you are totally right, and I have to say too that Junior is right. It's urgent. And we must not forget, I think on the southern side, the Dutch is less aggressive in trying to control. But the French is the most aggressive country to control. And the same way to elevate ourselves and stay united as we used to, the French is fighting with all the institutions that they are putting into place in order to destroy that unity. And the point is that if you are aware of it, then you fight back. But we are not. And in the north, the people are not aware. They think, oh, the welfare system is so good. And what is happening is our young people now is getting into it. So you have these young women making children with no father in the house and all of that. And when you become dependent, and this is what the France is doing us, making us dependent. When you become dependent, you ain't going independent. So we need to be aware, and I say he's right. Nothing happened together throughout history. The Dutch side always was in advance of many things, and that is what is going to happen. When, and I don't know what they are going to say this time, when you will have your independence and we can get the St. Martin nationality, we all gonna get it, because we will campaign to get the French nationality. Then what the French is going to say, we helping them to get rich, so when we gonna become St. Martiners on the Dutch side, and we will invade the whole situation. And this is what is going to happen. It's the only way that we can get there. Because we can't even put in a fight. You said yourself, the Holland and France, they all fought wars. You see St. Martin people fighting wars?
No. Thank you. Okay.
I'd like a response from the whole panel, if possible, about the difference between Jay Havisser, the difference between power and politics on this island, understanding that certainly since the 19th century, this island has been an oligarchy power structure, where a few key families, north side and south side, are really the power structure, and these political colonial systems that have come in. How can we adjust, or how do we move from these oligarchy power infrastructures that are really the local control of the island towards something like independence?
Thank you. Mr. De Wever, would you like to start? Mr. Groeneveld.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, you introduced a few of the panelists this evening, and you mentioned that they are educators, but I am an educator also.
Fine.
First an educator, and then I became a lawyer. Yeah. And the answer is education. Education, education, education. With that, you build, you change, you perfect your society. And there we have a whole lot of work to do, from the top to the bottom, from the bottom back up to the top. Education.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Jeffrey. Oh, sorry. Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, when I look at that particular issue and to get to that level, it's a dilemma. Because if you have those that are in power and control of influencing policy in the direction of countries, there are also ones that want to maintain a status quo. Where a serious and fundamental problem is the mental slavery that today we still have not gotten over. Where we have more autonomy, yet we don't take that autonomy and try to eradicate the mental slavery issue. And institute it in your regular, and by changing, influencing your educational curriculum to be able to make the struggle easier, to reach there faster. These are fundamental things that need to happen. But the question then becomes, the willingness and the power and the politics to be able to make those changes. Because if you just take, for example, the language of instruction, the reality of our population, it's a foregone conclusion what it needs to be. And we still here, we know what we're talking about.
Yes, it's to react to Jay. Jay, the colonial powers have already changed the preeminence of the families on the French side, on the northern side. We don't have that anymore. The people that are in politics today come out of the training of the colonial powers that are existent on the island. So that if they were able to do it, I think we should study it and find out how we can go into more a balanced situation. That's the first thing they did, Jay. In 1977, they eliminated. Everybody can remember how they fought down Dr. Pt.2. He was in courts with them for over 10 years and on lies, on unjust situation, but they had to get rid of him in order to place people who will agree with what they want on it. So we have that, and right now we have a politician that is totally in control of the system. They do exactly what the system tells them to do. You don't notice that because the system is a very how do you say, wise. They have the habit of dealing with us people for the longest of 500, 600 years. So they know how to deal with it, because colonialism is a mental thing. Is how they dominate you and how you are, like, and the mental slavery is right here, because they don't even think. People who are dominated by another set of people, and I have described them, and Fanon has described them, also those who read Fanon, the assimilated people. You forget who you are. You use another vocabulary. Can you imagine that Guadeloupe is a continent? Okay, that's how they see it, the continent, because they have already transposed. Do you imagine that France is la métropole? So if there is la métropole, and if there's the métropolitain, that means we are what? The colony and the colonial, because that is the equivalent terms. And you see that more and more, the people are more assimilated today, and the more you are educated, I'm sorry, education can elevate, but it can also drag you down. And a colony, and we could see in our society on the French side that it's the educated young people that are more in the system, whereas the masses still clinging to their traditional way of life, their traditional way of thinking. So
education has two sides. Mrs. Stumperfeld, your reaction, and then Mr. Lake.
Yes, I would like to take it a bit away from the political area, because that is something that is very difficult. But I believe, maybe it's idealistic of me also, but I believe many changes can take place among us. There's so many things we can do without touching the politician. And I don't see us making those moves either. if we strengthen ourselves, we are the people of St. Martin, I'm not talking politics, politicians, the people of St. Martin, work together, strengthen each other, cooperate with each other. We're not talking about politics. Eventually, we will truly become a people. A people have to work together, have to cry together, have to laugh together. And when you do that, you go through these experiences, you become a force. Right now, we are fragmented, not only French and Dutch, we are fragmented on the Dutch side too. There's so many things we don't know about our areas. There's so many things that we can do to improve our neighborhoods, improve our neighborhoods, improve our youngsters, improve everything. We are not doing it. We can blame everybody. Holland, whether they over us or not, right now what's happening on our island, and I'm not talking about the instruction, but what is happening on our island is we. And as long as we do not stand up and say we are responsible and we act like how we're supposed to act, we will always stay in this quagmire.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lake,
I would like to say that there's this Italian philosopher that says you must be realistically cynical, but you must keep hope alive. The situation on this island right now is dire. Whether it's from the labor perspective, where our people in the south, only 21% of them work in the private industry, whether it's in education, where the dropout rate amongst our children are maddening. It's terrible. In fact, I believe that in the colonial system, you're never educated, you're trained. You're trained to react. So when they whistle all the philosophical arguments, they know exactly what you're going to say at the end before you say it. So they don't educate you, they train you. Likewise, we could go down the line in labor, we could go down the line in business. I don't believe we have 15 to 20% of all the businesses on this island in the north and the south are owned by the people of this country. So labor, you're a minority. Business, you're a minority. Education, especially your young men, you're losing all your young men. So you got to keep hope alive. And then we must always remember that, for instance, when the struggle was on in South Africa for freedom, in apartheid, they said South Africa will not be freed in 1,000 years. Ian Smith said 1,000 years. And we go down, many of us lived and said, there will never be a black man president of the United States in our lifetime. It changed. So while we continue to struggle and we feel at times that the political establishment on this island is all powerful, it is definitely not all powerful. It is definitely not all powerful. We have seen cracks in them all the time. All the time there's cracks. Once we continue, those of us who believe, continue to do what you have to do. You keep banging against that wall, bang, it will eventually break because it is based, its foundation is clay. Water will rush it away. Yes, it's strong, it's been strong for 60 years. We think it's strong, but it's much weaker than we think. But we too have to be prepared to make the sacrifices, individually and collectively. We ought to believe in what we do. Okay. And as far as power concerned, we must never think about transferring power from one individual to a next individual. Power must be transferred from the individual or the small group to all the people. Unless we do that, we're not doing anything.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. For the sake of a lot of questions, please brief responses. Your question.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Martina. First of all, I'd like to direct a comment to Mr. Kroonenbelt. With all due respect, but Mr. Lake done dissect that when he said total independent. You know, I believe a country or one cannot be total independent or partial independent. So we really need to, when we, and you said education, you know, we really need to know as a people what is independent. So Mr. Lake dissected that really well, and I just wanted to make that comment. However, Mr. Lake, we often, let me say this before I go into my real question. We see a lot of people from other countries, for example, and I've witnessed people from St. Kitts, people from Jamaica, always say, you know, why you want to go independent for? I don't have the resources or nothing. Independence is good for their country, but they always tend to look down and say, yes, we should go independent because they benefit from the passport and they benefit from, you know, and I know it's a touchy subject, but I should say this. However, seeing really with the instability, and we touched on it with the political status of not trusting the government. You know, right now we really don't have a government. I mean, with the political instability, do you think that the people really have trust in this independence? And I do believe that the action is now. However, the now can be that we recruit those and we actually educate, because right now there's a movement that's going where there's some an age bracket, but I don't see any recruitment of younger people who believe in the same thing of independence, you know? So I think that drive needs to be done so that work can be done, drafting of laws, and try to see different structures, because if we're going to do this, we need to do this as a collective body. And Ms. Jeffrey, with all due respect, when you say that, you know, you believe that it should come, not it should come, but it will come from this side of the island, and that you guys will capitalize on it. That's just like one saying, you know, I'm not going to be part of the union, but I'm going to benefit from the things that, you know, that the union is fighting for. I believe that we need to educate, as you say, the people, and that we need to come together, and by all means, come and go look for this independence. That's my belief.
Thank you. I give you 20 seconds to respond because we have a lot of more questions. Mr. Lake, no reaction. 20 seconds for response.
Yeah, I would like to respond. No country, no part of this globe is totally independent. All countries are interdependent to each other. And if you study our system and you understand our system, you will realize that from the system we have now as country within the kingdom to independence is a small step. And we have the rights to self-determination, so anytime we can exercise that right. It's a small step, but we have to know what we have, appreciate what we have, and make proper use of the rights and the structures that we have, and we are not doing that sufficiently. Thank you.
Glory be to God. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tamara Van. I'm not sure who or where I'm going to direct this question, but this is something that has always confused me when it comes to independence. As a child, growing up, the minute you are able to acknowledge who you are as a person and realize that that's mommy and tata and who you are, they are preparing you for one thing, to get out of their house. Whether that's through proper education and making sure you have you get all the your degrees, whether it means teaching you to properly cook and clean and I mean basically even take care of children and the like. They are preparing you for independence. It did not depend on they for sure. And that's the way, I am a mother now, and I am properly preparing mine for her independence because I too would love to see her get out. Properly establish that is with the proper education and everything that any parent would want for their child. Now, what confuses me is that means that we come from a culture, we come from a people of wanting that independence. But then when we get to this point, we are faced with, it took us 30 years to get to whatever stage we are at now in that perspective, or we are not ready as a people and we need this and we need that. Why don't we somewhere, and yes, education is the most important, and taking into consideration all the aspects of it, be it political, social, and the like. Why don't we somewhere just draw the line and say, okay, let's start now? When and how and who do we need to get on board? Because these type of conversations will continue to go on for another 30 years. It will not stop. The same way we have children, and once we get fully pregnant and have a child, you want, there is a objective. And so if we go into the schools from now and start to tell them, because when you pay attention to it, and I'm not here blaming anybody, but the very system, whether it comes from the kingdom or wherever, it's set up to keep our minds in the place that we are, because you don't see anyone promoting and pushing being a judge or being a prosecutor. The key careers that you're going to need to go into independence to have your own country, it's not on that list of choices of careers for not even our study financiering. So we have to make that decision. We as individuals, we as in every capacity as human beings need to make a decision. But when are these conversations going to stop, and when are we going to make the next step? Who do we need on board? When are we going to stop pointing fingers at who have more than who and who have less?
For your 7 questions. Mrs. Comfort. No, that's not from. No. Mrs. Comfort.
One short thing. I agree. I agree with you. I believe we can start. The problem with independence is, are we going to start making a master plan for St. Martin before or after we achieve independence? Because we don't have one right now. There is nobody can tell us how St. Martin will look 20 years from now. We have to know what is planned for St. Martin. We have to know how our country will look like. We have to know where our money is spent, what is coming, where another boardwalk or another bridge is coming concretely. We have to know those things. We don't know. We've seen buildings going up without any placard of what it is. I mean, that is also transparency in your country. You have to know what is going on. There should be a master plan for St. Martin. And why I'm not so, I don't believe in independence now, because tomorrow, if it's independence, really the sun will not rise in the west. That means nothing is going to turn around for 100%.
Can I say something? Okay, 2 things. The culture, your political system have to correspond with your culture. Our political system is alien to our culture, because the political system is an alien political system. It's not the system that we as a people that fits into our culture. I'll give you a simple example. We, for instance, always throughout our political history, always look at the biggest vote getter as the leader. Now, if we had a system set up, for instance, we had the 3 powers separated, and the executive branch, the leader of government, would be directly elected by the people. That would fit into our culture, because the leader then would be the biggest vote getter. That's how we go. When you go into the parliament, the same thing. The same thing, and then you break up the branches, because that's our culture. Succession line, a bunch of us, but everybody have a say. You have to fit your political system into your culture. If you read my book, The Republic of St. Martin, which I wrote in the year 2000, I outlined my ideas of how a political system will be for St. Martin, dealing with direct democracy, what they call participatory democracy, in which all the people will be dealing with the joint proportional representation and still pass the poster, so some people will be able to get elected directly out of the region, and some will have to get elected throughout the whole system. You could, once you know St. Martin culture, then you build your political system into that culture, and then you wouldn't have 90% of the problems that you have today.
5 seconds for Mr. Grunewald.
Yeah, 5 seconds. Sure.
5 seconds for Mr. Grunewald. 5.
We have already taken a major step towards independence. Before 10-10-10, we did not have a council of ministers, we did not have a parliament, we did not have a governor, we did not have ministries. That is a major step towards independence, and we have to continue on that road, and eventually we are going to get there. There are a lot of smaller countries than us in Southeast Asia that are independent, admitted to the United Nations, and if they can do it, we can do it also.
Just quickly, there's a part of the book where Mr. Lake talked about, and when I read it, I didn't agree with it, but I will use that very same statement to say the solution to what you were referring to, MP, which is that basically the political bosses, as he called it in the book, maybe just to be radical and provocative, I would say they hijacked the 2000 referendum because they found a block, and basically people followed that particular thing. And I think what needs to happen is, I don't think there was so conspiracy theorists as at that time, but the issue here, I think we can use that same concept now that, you know, to be able to decide from a legislative to impose or to ensure that the executive branch of government institute the things necessary to prepare us adequately for that step. And because on the executive branch, that's where fundamental decisions can be made to facilitate that process. And I talk about, in particular, instituting a curriculum that will challenge and eradicate the mental slavery issue and prepare us for the independence in an institutionalized way. Not where we hoping that a group of people can get together and mobilize, you know. You can work from all angles, but when it comes to institutionalized, I think that's much more effective because you gather, you can touch and influence a lot more people than just basically the same faces that we see, you know, us preaching to the choir all the time.
Thank you. Mr. Lawrence.
Also, Lawrence, good evening, everyone. I'm not going to say what everybody's already saying. There's certain things said this evening that I just kind of don't agree with. First of all, I'm for independence. I'm for one island, one nation, one people. And Junior Lake, very much thank you for that book. I went back and read all your old books because I had to see how long this was going on. Well, my problem is the approach at this point. The approach at this time, everyone is coming and saying politics. Listen, you have to, with all due respect, we have to stop that. Because politics is supposed to follow the people. And if the people, from the next 4 years, all they talk about is independence, guess what is going to be the #1 topic for the next election? Independence. The people last year were sick and people dying in a hospital, and guess what was the #1 topic for election? A new hospital. We have to know who's in front of who. The horse, which is the power, is in front of the carriage. And until all people get to that point where we can talk about independence and don't get offended, because people right now don't even want to hear the running. They're so upset, they say this is craziness, and the other problem is we have a lot of people who have migrated to St. Martin, become Dutch, and now they are the strongest people who are fighting against independence. Why? Because, you know, because either in their country it didn't go well, or, you know, their reasons for becoming Dutch, and that's not everybody, but the reasons for becoming Dutch will be nullified. Don't have the passport anymore. So my comment to everyone is, and everyone in here, it does not take the government, I respect what Miguel says, but it does not take the government to hold a lecture here. It doesn't take the government to start a petition. It doesn't take the government to march for independence. It doesn't take the government, it takes us, the people. And Prince, he's my good friend. When you said your comment about Danielle Jeffrey, when she said the French would come down and benefit from what the Dutch has done, that's divisiveness, brother. We one people, and if you ask any person about the age of 70 in St. Martin, they'll tell you, they don't know nothing about no Dutch people, no French people, there's one people. So I think we need to get back to that point. You know, let's just, it doesn't matter if all the French people come here, if we're a republic first, it's one people, right? That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ife Badajo, and I'm so happy to be here. I know all the faces up there, and so it's kind of interesting for me to see and hear the different opinions. So I have very specific questions. Mr. DeWeaver, you said about institutionalized education, which I agree with for if you want to go into the area of independence. But how can we, or how do you propose that we educate in educational systems that we do not own? Because we don't have a St. Martin educational system. We have Dutch, we have American, we have Canadian, we have Caribbean, we have French. So how do you propose that we do that? And I have another question for someone else on the panel. Yourself as well as Mrs. Bryson, because you are hinting and very much advocating a wait for independence. So for what specific reasons must St. Martin wait to become independent? And how do you propose that we overcome those challenges so we don't have to wait any longer?
Thank you for your question. Very interesting question, especially first one, Mr. DeWeaver.
I don't want to sound like a repeat for everybody, but I guess everybody know where I work, and obviously I'm here as the leadership. Not that I'm scared, but that just I'm let the hard child out there. Basically, when it comes to how to answer your question specifically, I think it is also understanding that independence is a process, and that process needs to start. And the preparation, there's a number of things that we need to think. There are fundamental discussions we need to have. Language, that translates into culture, that translates into laws that we're going to be governing ourselves by. There are a number of things that we need to prepare, and even the educational system. And if we don't have the teachers that are prepared to be able to give a certain Caribbean-centric and Martin-centric type of education, that process has to start. That's why, for example, the implicit thing is about, the 10-year period of getting ready. But these are fundamental ingredients, because when we get there, we want it to be smooth and everybody don't feel like, we took them for a ride and gave them a 6 or a 9, but we turned a 6 into a 9.
Yes, you said wait for independence. It depends when we start preparing. I do not see us preparing ourselves for independence. There's no movement where I see we are preparing ourselves. And independence begins with the people. You cannot impose independence. People have to feel, they have to want, their oneness have to be there. There has to be trust. There has to be trust in our leaders. If we don't have trust in our leaders, people will not go for independence, because who will be our leaders after independence? Who will be our leaders after the independence? We have to have a plan, and that plan has to materialize. We start our plan and start implementing, and after independence, we will know where we're going. Nobody wants to jump into something he doesn't know. What you're going to do? Okay, want independence? If independence was so flawless, then would we have all these immigrants? Can we achieve much more, as Mr. Grunefeld said? We are in this situation. Why don't we take the time and really try to achieve whatever we can in this situation? And then there's also preparation to move on. I'm not saying wait forever, but we're going to wait forever, because Mr. Lake said we could have been independent 15 years ago. And we're not. Why? Because we haven't prepared. We don't have a master plan for St. Martin.
Okay, we are in our last 5